Hi, I'm Kent.
And I'm Anna.
And this is Film and Family, a podcast for filmmakers and professionals in the entertainment industries who want to experience deeper joy and satisfaction in their film lives and family careers.
Let's jump right in.
We are going to talk about getting your film financed today.
I feel like this is a topic that everyone really wants to focus on.
And we're going to talk about getting your film financed today.
What?
You're gonna,
repetition?
You're going to get it financed today.
Oh, well, yes. I'm not making that promise, but...
Well, me neither.
But hopefully you learned something today. So I feel like this is one of the biggest obstacles for most people. And so I want to talk about it, make it as simple as we can today. I think, just to preface, I personally think that the most important thing that we should be focusing on is how to make our films good, which is a much harder task to accomplish.
Yeah.
But because this question exists, I think we should address it and just know that it's not the most important one.
Yeah. I really can't agree with you more on that, because it's the same problem with, and what does that mean? That our film is good, but it's a big problem. It's a problem that so many young people are growing up and they're wanting to know. So we just watched a movie about Mr. Rogers. Go check it out. It's the Tom Hanks one. But we're Mr. Rogers obsessed here. If you haven't gathered that yet, if this is your first episode, welcome to the Mr. Rogers Fan Club podcast. But his favorite quote from literature was from The Little Prince, which was, the most important things, or the most essential, is invisible to the eye. And that's really, I think, the point, that preface point that Anna just made, is that making something that's meaningful to you and making something that actually matters in your heart and mind is way more important than getting an agent or getting funded or getting the latest gear or learning how to make super cool images and snappy cuts. And I don't know, it's more important than the mechanical, the visible, the tactile. That stuff is important. Productivity is important, but first step in getting your film financed is actually writing and developing and producing a project that really matters with a group of people that matter to you. And that's step one. That really is.
Yeah, I think.
And all the rest of the steps
it's
are
one
pretty
of those
much just
things,
extensions of that.
It's one of those things where we kind of get things out of order. And if we're focused on telling the best story we possibly can, I think a lot of the rest will happen more naturally. But if we're really focused on getting the film financed and not as much on the story, it's just going to take a lot longer. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but
and then you start
something to keep in mind.
And then you start to, this happens a lot. People start to adjust their concept, they adjust their story, they adjust their approach, they adjust their casting decisions, they adjust everything based on
what they think other people want. Is
it financeable? Is someone going to finance this? But here's the thing. Someone will finance any movie. I believe that. I think there's plenty of movies that are evidence of that. We've watched them, right? You watch them and you go, how on earth did anyone put up $1 million or 10 million or 50 million or sometimes 200 million for this movie? Like, that's shocking. This script, this project, like, it was totally misguided. And then there's ones that are like miracles and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe something this beautiful and challenging and, remarkable even got funded. I just think that you've just got to find the right people. So make something that's important and that matters. And then the challenge after that is finding the people that will actually finance it. And hopefully those people are also smart, responsible, financially minded people that aren't just crazy, because it's actually good to collaborate with people who are skeptical sometimes and cautious about investing in film because it's super risky, and we should be respectful enough of people who give us lots of money to make movies, to, also have those harder conversations about the finances and the validity of our projects. But they also hopefully are the right people that believe in the story that you're telling.
Yeah. So let's just, with that preface, let's say you do have that story. It's very developed. You've done everything that you know how to do without the funding, and all you need is the money to come through, and it's basically a turnkey investment.
Well, let me just stop you right there and say that what you described, I think, is a great attitude. I really do think, especially for first-time directors or young independent filmmakers, that is a great attitude to take, because there are always going to be a dozen steps within sight before you actually need money. And sometimes we act like the money is the thing that's stopping us, and that is going to stop us from getting the money. But when we think that it's the creative process that's keeping us between where we are right now and getting the financing for the film, then we'll move through that creative process, and that will actually lead us to that financing. So when you actually see the financing and say, what are all the obstacles in my way? You realize, well, I should write something. If there's a script, it's a lot more financeable. Oh, well, then I ought to put like a pitch deck together. Well, but to do that, I should develop the look of the film. Oh, and I should probably develop like a budget, and I should learn what goes into that, and a really legit budget. And I should learn the software that's industry standard for developing a budget and a strip board. And you see all these questions that are like way before the finance question. You've got lots of work to do still. So what you were saying is making it a turnkey investment. Mm-hmm. That's a great attitude to have. So start there and start shifting your mind from, well, I came up with a story, now someone needs to find it. Or even I wrote a script and someone needs to finance it. You're not even close. And that's not to be depressing. It's actually to be encouraging. You've got tons you can still do to make your movie before you need money.
Yeah. And I think that might even be a separate episode that we do, is just all that preparation that goes into creating the pitch or being ready to pitch. And that's filmmaking. I think it's important to realize that is creating the movie. And the movie exists first in your mind and on paper before it exists in the real physical world. And so that's the first stage of creation. And I think that can be also exciting. It's not like this drudgery that you have to get through. I think it's part of the process of creation. I
agree with that. And I think that idea of like creating something almost spiritually before it exists physically, that truly is the act of filmmaking. When you step on set and there's a set and there's actors and there's a script, not all movies are made that exact way, but most of the time we're talking about fiction filmmaking. And then there's all these things, and you realize that all those objects were written into a page, and then they were extracted from that page by various department heads and then assigned out and brought into this space. And all of these things which were just written in words are all becoming real on this movie set. And then you're capturing all these spoken words, and what was written becomes auditory, and what was written becomes visual, and what was written becomes tactile, at least for the people making the film. It becomes real. And so, just really focus on that sort of faith-based stuff, right? Well, the stuff you have to have faith that it will exist. So start manifesting that on the page, Well,
and I do think that is God's process of creation. In the Bible, it says, like, he said the word, right? And then it was done. And so that word on the page is the first step, and then it becomes a reality. But not to get too sidetracked, I think something that is really helpful to think about when we're, getting into the money part of it. Like, let's just talk about this.
Yeah.
I really like this equation that Brooke Castillo came up with. She is very good at simplifying things and boiling them down to their very simple elements.
In other words, making the obvious verbal
and applicable, like really easy.
She makes these complex problems into extremely obvious answers that make you feel sometimes a little silly.
So here's the formula. You ready? The formula. And I'm going to switch out the word offer for pitches because I think that's more relevant to film. So it's number of pitches minus the number of no's equals the number of yeses. There you go. We're done.
It's just a mind-blowing, it's a mind-blowing equation there.
Well, but it really is simple, and it's important to realize to look at every element of this. So first of all, if you're not pitching, then you're not going to get any yeses. But also, if you're not getting any no's, you're also not going to get any yeses. You have to load up on the ones, on all parts of the equation in order to get the yeses. So lots of offers, lots of no's, and eventually you'll get some yeses.
Absolutely. If you, sometimes it sounds so cliche. I really always think of Marty McFly in Back to the Future when he says, "Oh, you should send this tape. It's really good, Marty. You should send your tape to the record company." And he says, "I don't know, but what if they don't like it? I don't think I can handle that kind of rejection." And then he goes back in time and he meets his dad, and his dad says, "I never let anyone read my stories. What if they don't like it? I don't think I could handle that kind of rejection." and it just reminds me of this thing that we all experience, which is almost cliche. I think that it's so common. We've talked, people talk about it all the time, but I want you to just take a step back and ask yourself, does your firm belief in a rejection stop you from making the offer which makes your firm belief of a rejection true? Did that make any sense? You believe so much that you're going to get rejected that you basically deny yourself. You've already told yourself no. Well,
that's the worst kind of failure, is the failure to try at all.
But it's very common. And I found myself, by the way, on this feature, even that we're doing now, where I took on this producer role, which isn't common for me. Boy, those first 50 pitches just filled me with anxiety. I have no idea why.
I remember how nervous you were.
Every day. I mean, I felt good because I was pushing through it and I was just doing it. And I started getting very comfortable doing this thing that I was extremely uncomfortable doing. And I don't know why that was, but it might surprise you. If you're new to this process, maybe you're not, and that's great. If you're new to this process, and you're trying to get a film finance, and you start actually talking to people, and let's say these people definitely have the money, you just happen to know that. I mean, those are the people you're looking for anyway, right? You might find yourself experiencing some anxiety. Now, if you don't, that's great. Keep going. But if you're like me, then maybe you'll experience that. And it feels good actually to push through it.
Yeah, totally. And you're always going to get no's. Absolutely. No matter what you're offering, how good it is, whatever you're pitching and how amazing it is, it's not for everyone and you're going to get no's. But those no's are a great opportunity to learn. And if you don't get so frozen up with the rejection or the fear, then you can take that opportunity to to study this person who's saying no to you and figure out why. If you can figure out why, you can do it a little better every time. And this is a great way to develop the project, even not just the pitch of the project, but I actually have found, for me as a director, putting together the pitch and improving it and getting into the log line and the synopsis and all these little details of it and revising them has really helped me clarify exactly what I want this film to be.
Yeah. And if you have a team, it's really, really good to hash these out in sort of team conversation. Man, the film one of the films we're working on right now is tentatively titled At the Edge of a Wood. Let me tell you how many drafts of the log line we've gone through, of the tagline, of the log line, of the synopsis, of the summary. And it's important to do tons of drafts of those and to really hash it out and to keep editing each other's work, because adjusting something as simple as a 2-sentence summary of the movie really helps adjust the entire team's understanding of what is it that we are on a 30,000 foot, very basic general level trying to accomplish. So you can see how this process of preparing even the pitch deck or the pitch, verbal, whatever, just preparing to do that process of the story actually makes your film a lot better. Once again, that's our main focus, is to make the best movie possible, not just to get a bunch of money for ourselves because we want to selfishly sort of progress our movie career, our film career. We want to actually make something that matters. And so that really helps. It just helps to like hash those things out. And I've been surprised at the clarity and the strength that the project and all of the projects that we've done this on have taken on, as we just really, really fight through that process of nailing down, how do I tell someone what I'm doing in 2 sentences?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and what's interesting too, I think, is that if you don't want to be that creepy salesperson, right? You don't want to be the person who has an agenda, and improve your pitch in that way. I think that your intent has to be focused on something besides getting money. If you're thinking about, I really want to get this film financed, then you know you're probably being the creepy salesman a little bit. But if you're thinking about, I want to make the best movie possible, then I don't think there's as much of an agenda. That focus means that no matter what the person says, it's going to help you make the best movie possible because you can take feedback, you can improve it, you can keep trying.
And I think that that's really true. And one of the things that you have to be willing to say to potential financiers is that they have to understand that this is the same as starting up any company. Everyone says the film is super risky. And in all actuality, startups are, statistically speaking, high risk. So you just let them know that this is the same as if they were a venture capitalist and they were investing in a startup business with no guarantee of success, but they believe in the product, they believe in the value of what you're doing, and that they should not invest any more than they can afford to lose. Meaning, if they lose every dollar they put into your movie, they're not going to be filing for bankruptcy or in a financial position that's going to compromise their family's security. That's just to Anna's point of, like, if it's like, oh no, but you really should invest in my movie, and here's why it's going to make all of its money back, and here's all these things, you should believe that it'll make its money back. But you also want to like serve these people. I really actually think of it that way. I want to serve the people that finance our films. I don't want to just grab their money and go. And I don't, even if the movie like doesn't turn out, but it like moves my career forward, I still have to take personal responsibility as a producer for the ultimate outcome of the film, which means I take responsibility over the creative development, and I also take responsibility over the marketing and distribution, whatever responsibility I can or should take, depending on how the movie sells and everything. But I want to do whatever is absolutely best in the long run for the movie and also for the people who financed it, because those are the people that put up a lot of faith in the film. Those are the people that risked a lot. And so you should be approaching these people without a feeling of entitlement, and with a lot of, I mean, frankly, gratitude if they actually finance your film. And
well, even just for them taking the time to listen to the pitch,
yes,
and let you practice and give you feedback. And I would always suggest asking for feedback, asking who else they know. It can be a great way to meet people and to make more connections. And maybe they won't invest this time, but maybe later. And, you know, It's just a great process.
It is. It's like, I like that you mentioned that maybe later it can come to fruition in some other way, because you never know what could happen with people. And your buddies from college might become millionaires in a decade, and you might be happy to know them. Or this person who doesn't invest this time might actually feel very strongly about an idea that you come up with the next time. Or a movie that goes kind of well might inspire them to take some confidence in you because they see your work and they see some success down the road. Or
maybe they become connected to someone down the road who's a really good match.
Yep, they might meet someone that you need to know. So the more cordial and kind you can be to those people, and the more professional, and keep your act together and show that you've done your homework and really prepare all that other stuff that we've already talked about. And I want to just mention what you said, going back to the number of no's. So if you want to increase the number of yeses, just increase the number of offers. So if it takes 50 no's to get one yes, then you're going to need to do about, 300 offers to get like a handful of people that are able to finance a film. depending on what kind of film you're making and how expensive it really is and how you're financing the whole of it, because you might just need some equity and then do other stuff with the bank. I don't think we're going to get into that.
I think we'll do a separate episode about the pitch itself and how to construct that. Well,
and how to construct like deal making and finance structure. But the point there is it might be an enormously high number, more than people you can think of at a first glance, but I just want you to trust in the process of those names coming to you, and also in those names coming to you not just from your own memory, but that will happen. This is at least my experience, but I think that will happen. The longer you work, the more you'll go, oh, so-and-so's dad knew a guy, and this guy at school and this guy at church, and my one soccer coach, and I don't know. You'll just think of random people and you'll go, actually, these are high net worth individuals. and you might not know a ton of them, but you only need to know a few of them, and they'll know a handful of them. And you just keep working those contacts and keep working and tracing that, and you can find that many names. It's hard work and it does take time, but you can find those names.
And they don't have to have the money, because you can pitch to anyone, get their feedback, practice, and ask who they know, because everybody knows a few people. So if you pitch to everybody and every one of them knows a few people, then you're quickly expanding your network of people who might be interested in the opportunity to invest. And I think realizing that it is an opportunity is also important, because it can feel really, if you feel like you're hurting people by asking them for money, then that can really get in the way.
Yeah. Well, and that was something that was hard for me. Like, I felt like they were going to judge me. I think I had this belief, if I ask someone for money, just that sentence right there, like asking someone for money, that's not technically what you're doing, but it is technically what you're doing. So what's the problem with asking someone for money? Now, you're not begging them for money. You're not asking them to give you money. You're presenting an opportunity for an investment, which is a higher risk investment in terms of investment portfolios. And there are people that want that. They want to add that to their investment portfolios. They want to have some things that they invest in that are maybe high risk or maybe more meaningful to them. If they're diversifying an investment portfolio, this is something that high net worth people do. And you're presenting an opportunity for them. And they actually, I've found, are often very flattered. Even the ones that look at the budget breakdown and the financial numbers that you've broken down and all that homework, and they go, I've gotten this response a lot. This looks really, really well prepared. And it's a compelling project. And I think this is going to be successful, but I'm not in a position to invest in something of this size right now. And that's fine. Actually, I really appreciate their time to look over it. I ask them for feedback. I ask them, who do you know that has, that's in a position to maybe invest in something of this size, or who would know them? And you just keep chasing that trail. So I found people that actually, for the most part, are happy to help, happy to listen, happy to give feedback, and happy that you asked. They are. I've never once pitched to someone who seemed awkward about it or thought I was being awkward, even though I'm sure I wasn't like super great at it at first. I've never felt like anyone was offended. And if you don't know high net worth individuals, you know people who know them. So yeah, anyway, I think it takes some work to build a healthy mindset around it, and it takes some experience. Mm-hmm. So I found that to be really valuable.
Yeah, something that has been a struggle for me, or that has helped me. I think I struggled by thinking that this is my one shot. When I really am hoping that it's going to come through, I kind of can think, if this doesn't work, then like this was my chance. And that creates a lot of stress for me, creates some anxiety. Something that has kind of helped me get over that is almost just pretending like I'm a robot or something. Like, you think about a computer and how if a computer were following an algorithm and doing an experiment, there's no drama about failures or successes. It's just purely do the test and then mark yes or no, like, and then do it again and like adjust every single time. And so I think for me, thinking about it as an experiment, like, okay, I'm going to try something and then see what happens. And then I'm going to try something else. And I'm just figuring out what works, and I'm going to learn by experimenting. That has been helpful for me.
And doing that does not mean, I know Anna knows this, but that does not mean becoming robotic or memorized or rote or whatever, like a telemarketer or something. You don't need to write this. I don't think you need to write down scripts for this. You want to be real, and you can be. But that experiment mindset it's just an evaluative. It's a methodical sort of process-focused mindset. This idea of, how did that go? What could I improve? What didn't go as well as I thought it would, or would have liked it to go? And what went really well? Like, what seemed to work? What seemed to catch their attention? What seems to help them feel comfortable? And getting a no does not mean it didn't go well. Because that exact pitch could have gotten a yes from the right person, and maybe they weren't the right person. Or maybe there is something that you realize, like, oh, I don't think I should sort of talk this way or do this thing. But I have not found that I've needed to do a massive amount of that kind of work. I think it's healthy to do that, what you're saying. It's a healthy perspective to be evaluative. I think that's a word. I really do. It just sounds funny to say it. Maybe I've just never spoken that exact word. I'll look it up and evaluate my choice of words. But I have found that just like practice makes it more comfortable. That's the number one thing, I think, is that for me, I've just found that it's gotten easier and easier to write emails, to leave voicemails, to send texts. And I'll just say that if I want to get a little technical into some of the process, have written down names, phone numbers, email addresses, descriptions of the conversation and how it's evolving on a big Google Sheet document, and have emailed. And if the email gets no response within a week or two, I will text them if I have their phone number, their cell phone number. These are just people that either I know or know someone who knows them, and I'll mention, referrals and stuff and where I got their name and number from. And I just keep track of it all. And I've found that emails rarely get direct responses, although they sometimes do. Texts will often get responses, and they will say, oh, I didn't see that email. I got that a bunch. And then you follow up with that and you say, okay, I'll resend it. And then you follow up again. And you follow up every few weeks or maybe once a month. And it's a slow process, but you just keep working it. And we have, of actually legitimate names, I'd say we have over 50 in various stages of progressing conversation. And that's not all the people that we have reached out to, but those are sort of the ones that we're working. And that's just kind of the way it works. It requires a lot of diligence and homework, and it's not a fast, easy process. But it's not rocket science either, and it is pretty fun. You can say that it's not, but that's really you can change the way you think about these things. I think that we always tell ourselves a really unproductive thing, which is, I'm a creative person and I'm not a business person. I don't like money or businessy things.
Guilty of that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think most of us do that, especially while we were in film school. I know that me and many of my peers spoke in that language, and I think it's wrong. I think it's a creative process, just like any other creative process. Being able to manage that volume of communication, that skill of not just narrative or craft development, but also of concept development and of the development of the pitch and the financial structure of the movie, has actually filled me with feelings of power, and that I actually have the capacity within myself to make some of these things happen in my life for myself, instead of sitting around hoping that someone just gives me that chance. And so it is a creative process, and it's something that we creative people who love filmmaking are extremely adept at learning. We can learn that stuff. Well, it's totally possible.
We want to tell stories because we want to communicate with people in that way. And this is a communication. It's articulating yourself and your vision in the story and helping people believe and come out of the pitch feeling differently than they did at the beginning, just like you want with the film that you're telling a story about. Or did I say that?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I think that when you can learn to communicate yourself on different levels, like learning to communicate yourself through writing, through speaking, and through the visual language of film and music, those will bleed into each other. So it is still developing your skills.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really agree with that. And it's not just the skill of communication. If all communication is persuasion, as someone once said. Someone said that.
It was in our rhetorical theory book we read.
You should look it up. Look up who said that. Learn for yourself, because I can't remember. But that's sort of a philosophical idea that all communication is persuasion. And if that's the case, you're trying to help people understand the way you see the world when you make a movie. And you're doing the same thing when you're pitching a movie to an investor. And you're doing the same thing when you create a pitch deck. And you're just trying to help people understand. That is a form of persuasion. And if they catch the vision and they feel what you feel about it, then you'll get your film financed. You really will. And to just oversimplify it again, that's really all it takes. It takes finding the person with the money who wants to do it. And they'll see it, and they'll know it, and you'll know it, and you'll be able to help them feel that. And they might not know it right away. It's your job to help them, like Anna said, come to that, help them believe, help them see it. But it's not like you have to force them into it. You don't have to like push people or force people or exercise some sort of false sense of control over them. You pitch the film, you help them feel what you feel, and you paint the vision so that they can reveal their feelings about said film. And if they are the right person, they'll do it. And it's just a matter of pitching the right way to the right number of people. And the right number of people is however many people it takes. And that right number is going to be different for all of us, for all of our films. And so it sounds simple, and it is simple, but it's a lot of work, and it might be more time than you think. But if you really believe in the project yourself, you'll be willing to spend the time, and they'll be willing to spend the money.
So I would say if we were to boil this down to 3 steps, it would be create a pitch it, evaluate, and then you can just repeat. And
with the assumption of step 0, which is create something meaningful on the page.
And then that's the other thing I was going to say, is that if this isn't working, it's either because you're not doing it, or you're doing it, but you're thinking about your own agenda and how you want to make money, and not about making the best film possible.
So just a clarifying question. What are you not doing?
Pitching.
So if it's not working, it's because you're not pitching to anyone.
Well, you're either not doing the process at all, you're not pitching, or you're not evaluating, or you're not repeating that process. Or
you're what?
Or you're doing it, but you're kind of doing it wrong because you're focused on making money instead of making a great film.
Yeah. Listen, I know that first one sounds absurd. It's not happening because you're not pitching. But no joke, I think as a team, there were the 5 of us on Zoom meetings developing this project for weeks, months. We're like almost talking about the project as if like, yeah, it's not funded yet. Yeah, we didn't get funding this week. It didn't come through. And then we kept having to remind ourselves, like months down the process, we haven't pitched it to anyone. Like not a single soul on the earth knows about this movie. And
couldn't fund it if they wanted to. Yeah, they don't know it exists.
Yeah, exactly. And like we were still working on the pitch deck and all these other things, but we were almost coming to meetings like, I wonder if anyone's going to like, have gotten the money yet. And it's like, we're not pitching it yet. Like, we don't have a pitch deck that's ready. There's tons of work to do on it still. And that's not a delay tactic. It was just part of the process. We were still getting that process done. And yet we found ourselves emotionally beating ourselves up. Like, what's taking so long? Why haven't we funded this movie yet? And it's like, because we're still redrafting the script, and we're still developing the look, and we're still getting the script to where we can break it down so that we can break it down and then do a day out of days, and then turn that into a strip board schedule, and then turn that into a budget, and then put that into a financial projections model, breaking down like the return on investment and yada yada. And like we haven't done any of that work, and we're like, why hasn't anyone funded our film yet? it was almost this subconscious thing that we found all of us were doing it. And then once we started actually working on the process, I think our faith just kind of all buoyed up. We were like, oh, okay, like here's the response we're getting from people. And it actually was like really favorable. It wasn't like we just got tons of money, but like we got lots of names, we got lots of referrals, we got a lot of very hopeful responses. People saying, oh, this is a very well put together project. Just keep moving it, forward. And I've got some people you should talk to. And just lots of people like that. And a surprising number of people have looked at the deck. A few people have read the script, which I've learned isn't, I used to think that you just wrote a script and you just handed it to people and said, you want to fund this based on like some random number that I made up of what I think it will cost. And that's just such a gross, like, it's just so grossly unprepared. Like you can't fund something that way. Like you don't even like, anyway. So you got to believe that. You got to believe that you have to actually pitch it.
Well, and I think often what stops us is not knowing what that process even looks like, or having a false perception of what it might look like. Like someone saying, oh, hey, what do you do for a living? I make films. Oh, really? I've been wanting to invest in a film, like kind of imagining it being happening to you. And I think we do this in dating as well. And this is something that we talked about as we were pitching this idea of how it's like dating, where
how many people have you asked to marry you this week?
Or even to go on a date with you. It's not like you go ask everyone to marry you. But I think sometimes even in that stage, you just are like, wow, like no one has really, nothing's really happened for me for a while. Like I'm not like, making eye contact with someone and falling in love with each other. Like,
why hasn't this happened yet?
Isn't that how it happens in the movies? Like
sometimes
just sort of.
The movies.
You just sort of connect with your eyes.
I don't appreciate that as a movie maker. I don't like you throwing my profession under the bus.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Go make a movie yourself that depicts it better if you don't like it.
But we kind of talked about like, what are the odds of finding a person who you're totally, like you are totally in love with and want to spend the rest of your life with.
You're ready to commit forever.
Yeah. This isn't just one little project. This is like for as long as we both shall live, right? And the fact that they would also be willing to commit forever and feel the same way seems so unlikely.
That's a big commitment. It's expensive. It's expensive too. It's
investment.
Like you're asking someone to dedicate their entire net worth and their entire time and their whole heart.
Will you give me all of you?
All of it. Yeah. That's a huge investment. Massive. Crazy.
And yet most, lots of people who really want to get married.
And how many first dates does it take to lead to serious relationships? And how many serious relationships does it take to lead to marriage? It's going to be different for every person, right? And for some people, it might take a long time. Same with movies. It's going to be different for every movie. It's going to be different for every person who's making movies. And for first timers, it is going to be hardest the first time, probably. I don't know that for a fact, but it's probably going to be hardest your first time.
First time
funding a film.
Oh, I see.
And so, yeah, that was something we said right at the beginning of this is if we can find someone who's willing to dedicate their whole lives to us, right, then we should be able to find someone who's willing to put up, a measly $500,000. That's nothing compared to your whole life, heart, and net worth, right? Children, women willing to dedicate themselves to men and have children. That's crazy. Like that's a big investment, right? That's a lot you're asking of someone when you ask them to marry you. So if we can find one person that would say yes to that, of course we can find someone who's willing to put up at least a portion of the financing for a film like this and then find a few people. So how many is that going to be? So just, set a big number and say, I'm just going to try that and see if that's not enough.
And if you are still single and you want to use this formula to help you with dating.
This is film and family.
This applies here as well. Number of pitches or offers to go on a date.
Asks. I think asks is a good word.
Yeah. Number of asks minus number of no's equals number of yeses. And you're going to have more no's if you do more asks. But then you only need one like continual yes, I guess.
Continual yes is the key word. But That's if you're super concerned about marriage. And otherwise, you can just date people and, enjoy that process. But, riffing on this extended metaphor, it's also definitely the process. What was I going to say? That you don't want to be the creepy salesman, right? You don't want to be like, oh my gosh, no one loves me. Oh my gosh, I need a relationship so bad. I need someone to fuel this feeling in me. First of all, those are false paradigms. You don't actually need someone to do that for you. They're not going to make you feel a certain way. And you might want to rethink the reasons why you want to be in a relationship. But if you don't want that to be creepy salesman, the same way you're asking for investors to invest in a film, if you're actually thinking about what they need and you're thinking about what the ways you can serve those people, and a no is not going to crush you. It's okay to get no's, and you'll just keep moving forward and giving people chances. What was the other stuff you said about creepy salesman? I feel like I'm not doing it justice. Do you feel like I extended that? How do you not be a creepy salesman?
It depends on your intent.
Yeah. So if your intent is,
if you're thinking about yourself and your agenda,
yeah,
that shows through. It's like,
that sounds so obvious. Like, don't think about your own personal selfish agenda. And it's like, well, I'm not a selfish person. I wouldn't think about that. But then just watch yourself the next time you sell something or pitch a movie or ask someone out on a date or whatever, and just analyze, like, what am I thinking about here? Am I thinking about what I want, or am I thinking about like trying to help someone? Am I actually like trying to help somebody? And I find myself surprised at how often I'm like, oh, I'm slipping back into that. Like, I seem desperate because I'm just thinking about what I want. Like, I want this really bad for me.
Well, and I do think it makes sense if you're like, I'm asking people on dates because I want to get married. It's like, of course, why else would I ask people on dates?
Right.
But that intent or that agenda might actually scare people away if
they can sense it.
Yeah, if they can sense that, like, it's not really about them. It's really more about you wanting to get this thing done in your life.
Yeah, and this might not be a problem for some people. Some people might just be working on, like, either they're married. A lot of our podcast listeners are probably married or already in a relationship, or they might be trying to get in a relationship, or they might not even have that on their radar. But I'll just be honest, we went to school at BYU, and so this was on a lot of people's radar, and I think a lot of people could sense the difference between the people who were like, I am trying to get married. Not a bad thing, right? It's totally fine to be trying to get married and make that happen in your life. But when you can sense that, you might put your guard up a little bit because you might not be ready. You might just be trying to enjoy yourself on a date with a person and seeing where that goes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's true. But if you feel like this is a person who's like, wow, this person seems actively concerned for, like, I don't know, my feelings and my thoughts and my opinions on the world. And then you're like, wow, that's a very attractive quality. And that changes the whole thing. Instead of like, oh my gosh, I think this could be it. Like, it's, well, like, what do you think about these things? And I'm just interested in you, like, in your thoughts and whatever. Like, that's just a better place to be coming from.
You could go into a pitch with the exact same mentality.
Bring it back. You go into a pitch with this feeling of, if it's someone you know, or if you don't know, you're going to adjust how familiar you or casual you are in conversation with those people. But if you're being real, you're going to talk to them about, like, what they do and what their position is and what, who they know. And it'll be a natural conversation, and you'll learn. You should try and learn a little bit about these people and make it a friendly, positive, helpful thing for them. Even if they don't want to invest in your film, you want them to leave feeling like, that was a good experience. I met someone, I actually met a human being, and I actually might talk to them again. I don't know. It doesn't have to always be that way. You don't have to, like, strike up a friendship with them, but if you're being real, then you're going to listen as much as you talk. So, speaking of which,
yeah, I think we'll wrap it there. Keep it simple, and we'll probably go into some more detail on some other episodes.
Yeah, we'll get more into the structure of this, but we do want to touch on the bigger principles, and hopefully that's helpful, and hopefully you can start shifting your mindset, and we'll continue to move into the major specifics, the strategy side of this, and some of the more actionable things. But remember, actionable strategies are useless if you don't have the right mindset, because you can do the same thing that someone else does, and it won't work for you if you don't think the same things as them or believe or have the same attitudes. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right. See you then.
Bye.
Bye. If you like what you're learning on this podcast, or you want some help applying it, I really want to invite you to join the Film and Family program so I can help you take everything you're learning and apply it to your unique situation. The 5-step model that I teach is simple, it's proven, and it's worked for thousands of people. It's also risk-free. You'll either create the results you want, or I'll give you your money back. I'd love to talk to you and see if I can help. If you're interested, you can visit us and learn more at invisiblemansion.com/film and family. I'll see you there. Bye.